don't let people gatekeep for you to be a fan. If you only like the Thor movies, then you're still a fan.
Sad take, but all right.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast, with your hosts, Connor O'Neill and Matthew Hughes.
What is up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Misfit Podcast.
Yes, welcome all to another fun-filled episode, another Wednesday, and any other day you're ending in Y. We are back with a topic we have not chatted about recently.
Well, there'll
will
be a lot
coming up a lot.
Yeah. So we have a Marvel-related topic, and also this is the first podcast of February.
Yes, so happy February.
January did fly by.
It really did, honestly.
It's very snowy outside for us.
Yeah, currently it's disgusting out for nice
Huge
snowies.
flakes.
Just all of a sudden. It was nice rainfall throughout the day, and then like 3 o'clock hit, and it just shifted to slush.
Yeah. So actually, wanted to say a few things before we get into our topic today, which is one, February is going to be a pretty busy month for us. We're going to be trying a couple new things, so look forward to content outside of the podcast.
Yes.
As well as we'll be starting a new series that is also outside of the podcast, which will be our MCU review watch through series.
Yeah.
Matt and I thought that why not just start picking off that from the very beginning of the MCU, and as we watch each movie, we're just going to put a discussion video similar to what we do for Anime of the Month.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to keep it on a much shorter
length.
Yeah.
Coming out on a different day. So if you want a little bit of extra Nerdy Misfit content, we got you covered.
And just eventually work to all the MCU movies.
Yeah.
Have their own little mini review. We'll see about the shows.
We'll get there when we cross that bridge.
A lot harder to get through than a simple movie. We just got to find the time, sit down, watch it, easy peasy.
Easy peasy, fly by.
Shows do take a little bit more time, depending on the show.
Depending on the show, I think some of the MCU shows definitely fly by, others not so much.
And some of the earlier ones, like S.H.I.E.L.D., have many seasons. So
yeah, that one is just, I don't even count that one.
So
that's just
we'll
my
see.
opinion.
Anyways, look forward to that. We'll have some more outside the podcast content coming out this month and in the future. So
stay tuned.
We're excited for that.
That's really exciting.
Now, on to the fun topic we have today, which will potentially spread to some of our other nerd-related topics that we usually discuss. But we thought we'd take it simpler with the MCU. We'll see if it's easy. I think some of these are going to be...
Some of them I'm going to
have to dig deep in the memory bank to remember.
I don't know.
Movies.
I mean, I went through and I found a bunch of these ones, and some of them I'm like, that is quite the interesting opinion.
Yep. So without further ado, it's MCU Hot Takes.
MCU Hot Takes.
So we asked you guys, as well as Matt scoured the internet. Probably didn't actually have to look that hard.
I went through Reddit, I went through Ranker, and then we asked a bunch of our group of our friends, and we have a list of about, I'd say 15 to 20
we'll see
hot
what we get
takes
through.
of the MCU. And we'll start with the Reddit category, and we'll just go right off to the straight hot take of, Connor, hot take number 1, Thor 1 is the best Thor movie.
The best Thor movie. Okay, for a second I thought you were going to say is the best
No.
movie.
Gosh, no.
Best Thor movie.
Thor 1 is the best Thor movie.
Now, are we basing this off of story?
All of the above. Your strict
Okay.
opinion. How much of a hot take is that?
Honestly, I don't think that's if I was like to say a scale of hot is 1 to 5.
Okay.
I'd say it's pretty in the middle.
Yeah, that's
like
average,
a 3.
you know.
Like, I think Thor 1 is one of the better stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit bland. I actually was talking to Gray recently. He watched it, I think, Thor 1 recently, and said how it was kind of boring. But it did introduce Thor. It was a more classic Thor story.
Yeah.
And overall, I don't think the story was bad. Maybe there was a little too many lull periods where it was slow. But you're comparing it to Thor 2, which is like, yikes. If you're really into comedy, then Thor 3 is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely are laughing. But it also doesn't feel like Thor at that point.
That's
anymore.
fair.
And then 4 was just, it felt like they were trying to recreate the magic of 3.
Which is 100%, because the director of Thor 3, which was Thor Ragnarok, he didn't know he was going to get signed up for a 4th one, so he put all he could into the 3rd one. And they're like, yeah,
I felt
do
like
it
a
again.
lot of the jokes fell really flat in 4 and was kind of cringy. So you're really competing against 3, and then it's just a matter of which Thor do you like. Do you like more of the
Serious
classic, like
classic versus
old school Thor, or do you
That's
want
fair.
like this new age evolved Thor?
Mhm.
So I don't know if that's as hot as one might think.
That's fair. Some of these down the line will get pretty spicy.
So I'd say 3. I'd say
But-
it's like a 3 on the 1 to 5 hot
Okay.
scale. What do you
Thor-
think?
I mean, I can definitely see why people think Thor 1 is the best movie. It's definitely not the worst. Like, I think
Introduces Loki too.
introduce Loki properly, introduces a good group of characters that we see throughout the entire MCU over the years. Introduced, obviously, Chris Hemsworth. I thought the story was a little slow, but it was still fun. Like, the fact...
And
like,
it was an origin, right? Like
Yeah, the phase 1 into, like, halfway through phase 2 is all origins, right? So, it's not a...
it has importance.
has importance. It is the first appearance of Hawkeye as well.
Yep.
Even though that's mostly just a blink and you'll miss it kind of situation. I could see it being the best. Like you said, it really depends. Like if you don't like comedy, then Thor 1's going to be your favorite Thor movie. But
Competition ain't hard.
competition ain't hard. And this next one, I got words for this one. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is better than Guardians of the Galaxy 1.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is with the Living Planet.
Yes.
Ooh.
No. The answer is no. Like it's
Better than the first one, eh?
no.
Hmm.
The first one's got a great story.
The first one might be one of the best MCU films.
It's definitely up there.
And I don't think Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is one of the best MCU
It's not
films.
it's not anywhere close to it.
Yeah, no, I'd say this one's on the hotter side.
Like it's
Are we putting hotter on 1 is the hot or 5 is hot?
5 is hot.
5's hot? Yeah, I'd say this is 5.
Like this is ballsy to say, I think.
I think Guardians 3 was better than Guardians 2. And it
Yeah.
has
And Guardians 3 has issues too.
yeah, it has issues, but
But at least
but it's a Guardians 3 is a very like if it was a standalone away from the MCU, it's a pretty good movie.
yeah.
I know like you have issues with it because of
I have multiple issues with it. but
especially due to the relation to the MCU.
relation to the MCU, the characters that they chose to add into the film series,
But
the overuse of Baby Groot, but that's just
that's Guardians 2 opens with
that's what I
Baby
mean.
Groot. Yeah, I didn't like the Living Planet and then making him
Peter Quill's dad.
yeah, that was a bit
because like obviously in the comics, Peter Quill's dad is like a big deal with him
mhm.
being literally like Captain of the Starjammers. He's literally a space pirate,
Yep.
and that would have been so much fun to add like that as a sub story. But
Let that one
I-
get away.
I digress, you know.
Yeah, I don't agree with this one.
Nope.
Music was still good though.
Music was still good.
But not as good as the first one.
Not as good as the first one. I think it was a little aggressive to have 5 post-credit scenes.
Yeah, but I don't even know if that's necessarily on like
James Gunn,
James Gunn
or
and the Guardians.
Marvel.
Maybe 1 or 2, but then Marvel's like, "Hey, we need these."
We need 5.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I think 1 is the sweet spot. You don't need unless you want to throw a really quick teaser of like there'll be another one of these movies.
Yeah.
Sure. But in the MCU who's introduced the post-credit scene, I think having that one post-credit scene that's kind of either leading you into the next part of the MCU as a whole story,
Yeah.
or what the big bad's up to, kind of like a cover story of One Piece.
Yeah, literally.
I think those are
yeah, a mid
great.
I'd be down for like sometimes a mid-credit scene, really depending. But then like I don't think all the post-credit scenes have to connect directly to it. Like when I think it was at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming is when they memed us.
Yeah.
With Captain America being like, patience.
Yeah,
you know.
the educational video.
Yeah. I'm like, see, that's a fun post-credit scene that doesn't have to like
yeah, but they
set
also
up,
know they
but-
have you staying in
exactly
the whole time, which is like, we're here. Give us a nice post-credit scene, and we'll be on our way.
Exactly. All right, Connor. Hot take number 3. Ant-Man has one of the best final boss fight scenes in the MCU.
It's been a while since I've seen Ant-Man. Best final boss, and this is
This I would put around a 2. I love this fight scene because it's so much fun. I don't know if you exactly remember
the fight
it,
choreography
but
with most of Ant-Man's fights
was good.
are great.
Yeah.
The use of shrinking and growing and using the environment around them depending on
well, that's
at
what
that
makes,
point what size it is,
yeah.
right?
Well, that's what makes this fight scene so much fun because this is the fight scene where Ant-Man's fighting Yellowjacket in his daughter's bedroom.
Yes.
And they shrink really small, and they're on like that toy train set, and like he ends up like throwing Thomas the Tank and stuff like that, and then it cuts back to like full frame, and you just see the little truck the train just hit, and it just falls.
I guess like we're supposed to be comparing this to potentially Avengers level villains and stuff because those are part of the MCU as well. But in terms of like choreography
was top tier.
This might be up there. I mean,
I don't think that's hot. This is that hot of a take.
I don't think that's that hot. I think honestly might be a 1 or a 2. Like it's
because what makes the Endgame fight scene is not necessarily the fighting, but the dialogue of it.
The dialogue, the emotion,
the stakes, the emotion. That's what makes those fight scenes great. But this is like
something that I think of as another good fight scene is Civil War with Winter Soldier and Cap fighting Tony.
Yeah, that's amazing fight
and it's
scene.
not even that long of a fight. It's
but
just
it's the choreography.
Choreography's great. The there's a lot of emotion there. I'd say this isn't a hot take. I think that the Ant-Man final boss is, like you said, in the daughter's room. It's just funny but action packed.
It fit the vibe of Ant-Man because Ant-Man was a whole just fun, action packed, like easy peasy story.
Yeah, weak take.
I would give it like 1.5, maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll say 2.
We'll give it 2, just benefit of the doubt.
There are great fights in the MCU, and we can definitely be just forgetting like some real epic ones. So I'll give it a 2, but it's not hot.
No, it's not that hot at all. Number 4, Scarlet Witch should not be a villain.
Scarlet Witch should not be a villain.
I have an answer for this, but I'm curious what you think first.
But she's not really she's not a true villain in the sense.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on for this this switch of character that she has. I'm assuming this is referencing the Doctor Strange film, right?
Yeah, I'd assume so.
Because she ends up treating Agatha pretty bad, but Agatha's also a villain in general. So I mean, should we feel bad for that? So I'm guessing we're just taking it in the sense of the Doctor Strange and then how she treated the Illuminati. Which was pretty messed up, to say the least. I don't think this is hot, though. She should not be a villain. Or is it a hot take? I don't know. I think the character is so complex that she's not really a villain, nor is she
a hero either.
She's kind of on that line, and we see that multiple times. We literally get introduced to her as a tool, someone who's been used. Yeah. So, and she kind of has to be really coerced to be you can do some good with the powers you have, but you should not be the villain. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this might be a 3 for me.
The thing is that in the comics, she started as a villain.
She's Magneto's kid.
She was originally Magneto's kid. She was going against she joined the Brotherhood of Mutants, and then she joined the Avengers for a little bit, joined the X-Men, and then you think of big stories like M-Day.
Yep.
Where she kills 90% of the mutant population at once.
Yeah.
So to be fair, her character is very complex, and even in the MCU,
she's always on that line.
She's always on that fine line, sane to not so sane, and she's not, like you said, she's not a villain, but she's not a hero.
Think of the start of Civil War. Not that she purposely meant to
bring that building down,
kill a bunch of people, but she's the one who ends up basically causing
the domino effect of Civil War and why they have to go into hiding.
Yeah, exactly. Soviet Accords are literally created because of that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Mm-hmm. Scarlet Witch should not be. I think it's similar to a 2. I don't know. That's not really a hot take because villain also makes me think of Loki, Ultron, big level villains, and she was just kind of she had her show and she really just wanted to protect her family, and then she goes a little cuckoo
because she lost her family.
Because she lost her family.
There's reasonings behind it, but I guess you could say that about some villains.
Yeah, that's true. Everyone does have their own
little origin story that has caused them to go towards villainy.
Yeah.
I would just say she flirts with that line a lot, and in some forms of her character, she's on the bad. Sometimes she's on the good. That's why I'm very like middle.
Yeah, I think 2 or 3 works. All right, now we're gonna get into some other ones that I'm like a little bit hotter takes here. Number 5, Captain America doesn't have a good trilogy.
Captain America doesn't have a good trilogy. So first off, we have to think of everyone who has a trilogy.
Yeah, so that's Iron Man. Thor now has 4 movies. Ant-Man now
okay.
has 3 movies. Ant-Man, Thor, Iron Man, Cap. Spider-Man.
Spider-Man might be the strongest.
Spider-Man's up there, I think, with Captain America.
Yeah, with Captain America.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man's trilogy, I guess you can say Tony Stark's overall story is pretty good through the trilogy.
I think Tony Stark's story is overall great in the MCU as a whole.
But the thing that ruins it is there's a lot of backtracking within like the Avengers films to make Tony Stark's character make sense, because it felt like his trilogy was almost told too quickly.
Yeah.
Like Tony Stark's story through his
2 of
3
his movies were in phase 1, right?
So they almost had to like retcon some of the things that were happening with him
Mm-hmm.
to work for the rest of the MCU. So that kind of hurts it.
Yeah.
Guardians
of the Galaxy has the worst trilogy. Thor, then, yeah. Thor is the worst. Then
Thor's...
Ooh. I can't remember Ant-Man 2, so I can't really comment on Ant-Man.
Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yeah.
Versus Ghost or whatever.
Yeah. I don't remember.
That should probably tell you a lot.
Yeah.
It's not very memorable.
Yeah.
But Ant-Man 3 was okay.
Ant-Man 3 was fun.
I got a lot of not great reception, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
Check back our podcast episode when we talked about Ant-Man Quantumania.
But I didn't think it was
I don't think
that
it was
bad.
terrible.
But yeah, I think Captain America's up there with probably
Captain America
potentially
has
one of the
arguably
best,
the
if
best
not,
trilogies.
if not the best.
I can kind of understand where...
If you're not as... We actually had a discussion similar on some level that a lot of what Captain America deals with ends up being a lot of political stuff.
Yeah.
Which isn't everyone's cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you have... The first one is just his origin story for the most part. We get a lot of history of where he was before he took the serum and kind of his...
The height of World War II. Let's
and
just...
What ends up happening to some of the characters that end up like Bucky
Yeah.
and stuff. So we kind of get them introduced, and then you kind of jump into modern day where he's like, you know, popsicle defrosted, what's going on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's a soldier. He's a good soldier. He does what until we start getting into 2 and 3 where he goes against the grain because he feels like he can't be, I guess, Captain America. He's more like Captain, I do what's right in my like what I do, what I believe is right, not what
is morally good.
What America wants me to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So he kind of goes against the grain a lot.
Which then obviously sets up the story for the other films. The only argument I can see here with people saying that he doesn't have a good trilogy is that with Iron Man 1, 2, and 3, I feel like you can watch it and
there's
get a corrosive story.
Yeah, like you can see Tony's changing throughout.
Exactly. With Captain America, you kind of need to watch, I'd say, the first Avengers, Age of Ultron.
You're saying that other MCU films do have some impact.
Yeah.
But even if you watch 1, 2, and 3, you go from 1 where he's like, I do what I'm told.
1's fine. That's a
to
good
realizing
origin
how corrupt
the government is. Makes sense.
Like obviously we have Hydra that's taking over the government and S.H.I.E.L.D. And then 3 is when he really puts his foot down and he's like, no, I'm not going to do this. This isn't right. And they're like, you have to. And he's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And then he becomes a fugitive. So I would say
it's still a connective story, I think, but for like good.
And he stays true to
his character.
Who he is.
Yeah. The benefit too of Civil War is that Bucky returns. So you kind of get a continuation of Bucky a bit, which is nice. But I think for the extra context you need
a lot of his stories spread out through other like obviously we see Bucky show up initially in the Winter Soldier,
but
he ends up being in a lot of
he ends up
MCU
joining
films.
Yeah. And obviously in Civil War, like even like you need to understand the full disagreement between Tony and Cap. Like that's I feel like is good to see in the first Avengers and the second Avengers to really get that impactfulness.
Yeah,
From Civil
from
War?
Avengers 1, there's already that little bit of
Tension.
tension where they obviously disagree on
Mhm.
certain views.
Yeah.
But I don't think that makes his trilogy bad.
No, I don't think so either. I think he, like you said, he has arguably one of the best
I think he's in the upper half.
Yeah. for sure.
So I'd say that on the hot scale, I think that's a 5.
That is 5. Next one up. This one I don't really care about. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. should have remained canon.
I agree. As someone who was watching it as when it first started airing, and it did have some, never like truly connected, but always had cleaning up potential things that happen
Yeah.
within the. They should have almost forced it to eventually join.
Mhm.
And we saw a lot of different characters get introduced that could have made the jump from TV
To movie.
to movie. I always thought it would have been interesting to see Coulson show back up and see how the Avengers react to Nick
and being
Fury
Okay.
because his death is kind of what brings the Avengers together
Yeah.
to victory in Avengers 1. So I was always kind of curious if Coulson would end up showing up, or like if Cap was just around, or Tony's like gets into documents he shouldn't have,
Mm-hmm.
and they figure out that Coulson's alive. And I was very interested to see how the reaction would be to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there are like there's like discussions about the Kree in there.
Yeah, I think through the end of season 2 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's still pretty canon. I remember there would be like an episode that would come out a week before Thor 2 came out for S.H.I.E.L.D., and that would kind of connect. They did the same thing with like Doctor Strange and stuff.
Yep.
But I think come like season 3, season 4, that's when they kind of started doing their own thing away from the MCU.
I always thought that like Daisy Johnson was gonna make the jump
Mm-hmm.
from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. into being an agent within the MCU.
Yeah.
But yeah, that because she's got good powers. But she's more of an agent, where a lot of the Avengers, they're not really doing what S.H.I.E.L.D. wants. They become their own entity
Yeah.
almost, right?
Do you think that we could have had a different outcome if the Inhumans show didn't flop?
Yes, potentially. I think
that's probably the big hitter.
yeah, because that's what they were building up, a lot of Inhuman stuff within
Yeah.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right? So
And
it
they
would have been cool to see.
Well, they like foreshadowed a little bit with trying to make that like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were kind of connected to the Inhumans a little bit. And then I remember the Inhumans. I've never seen the Inhuman show, so I'm gonna put that out there. But I know like when it first came out, they did like the first 2 episodes in like IMAX,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of it went to TV or whatever, right?
Well, it was originally supposed to be a movie,
Yeah,
and
and
then
then
that
they-
fell. So
Classic.
I think that perhaps the failure of the Inhumans probably cost a lot of the jumping on board,
That makes sense.
because we could have seen Daisy Johnson be a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent within the movies and then jump to the Inhumans, and Inhumans could have really been a massive entity within the MCU.
I would agree. Yeah.
And especially now that we have X-Men, like there's a lot of drama between Avengers, X-Men, and Inhumans.
Yes.
So we could have had a lot of craziness going on with inner hero fighting as opposed
inner
to
hero
just
drama. Yeah.
villains, which would have been really cool to see.
So how would you rate that out of 5 then? Like 4.
The thing is, how many people have seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah.
Like for me, it's not that hot because I agree. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I'd put it at like a 3 maybe then, like pretty average.
Yeah, I'd say 3.
All right, moving on. Next one up. Endgame was not as satisfying a conclusion to the Infinity Saga as some claim.
I thought it was fine. I think a lot of people are always going to feel this way because it's that wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Think of how many stories you've read where people are like, just even if it's an okay ending, where people are just like, it was bad, and you're like, it wasn't bad. It was just
Great.
it just maybe perhaps you hyped it up too much. I mean, like
Yeah.
at this point, how long was the MCU, and we finally lived up to this moment, and then it's over. There's gonna always be that like,
Yeah.
that's it.
Anything else?
That's it.
You know?
Like, don't you have something? And no, I know that a lot of people ended up saying they like the Infinity more
Infinity War more than Endgame?
than Endgame, and I feel like that's makes sense because it's creates all the setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the drama and all the setup happens in that first film. And the second film is, how do we solve it,
Yeah.
right? We know that Thanos is going to lose. We know that all the for the most part, all the Avengers are coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was bad. I just think it leaves that bit of, I wanted more, or I thought it was going to be different, and people are always going to be disappointed. You know, you're not going to please everyone. And they want it, in my opinion, they don't leave a lot of, this is coming, this is happening next. I think because they're trying to conclude the original saga of the MCU. So for me, I think it was sad. Like, it was fine.
Okay.
And especially since at that time, like, we definitely knew RDJ was done.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a pretty good send off for his character.
I think it was a good send off.
He went from being one of the most selfish people in the MCU when we first get introduced to Tony Stark and as Iron Man, to giving up his life for everyone.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good. I disagree. I'd say that's a 5 on the hot take scale.
I don't know if that's a 5. I think, like, I can understand what people think because it left new things open ended, and it was just like certain characters didn't really get a conclusion. I guess.
Why does everyone see?
But
this is
that's
the
what I
thing.
mean. But why does everyone need a conclusion if characters are going to continue?
Really, the conclusion is mostly focused along how the beating of Thanos, right? Like, that's the big bad of the Infinity Saga.
Yeah, exactly. He was the big bad that we saw since Phase 1.
So what's, in your opinion, what was not satisfying? What did you
Well, it's not that I don't think it's satisfying. I think Spider-Man 2 is a good epilogue to the Infinity Saga, where we see what the world is like now that Tony's gone. We see a character that was directly affected by Tony.
But we also knew the MCU was continuing in general.
Yeah,
right. So we were bound to always get that content because we had heroes that were part of the Infinity Saga that were still going to be moving on, right? It's not like the Infinity Saga ends and then all of a sudden we have like let's say we have Ms. Marvel, and she was never involved with anything we knew in the MCU originally, and it's unrelated. She just ignores that ever happened. No, everyone's as we're getting introduced, we have Captain Marvel that obviously knows everything that happened. We have the new Captain America and Sam Wilson that obviously knows everything that's happened.
Yeah.
We have Bucky. We have so many characters that even discuss Ant-Man 3, where we really dive into like the emotional impact of like losing your family, right? Like, and having to go through those years without a member. Like, you see the impact later on because the MCU still exists. So I don't know if I really agree with it, as there are other things that happen after it. It's not like it's the end of the MCU. It's the end of the Infinity Saga.
I agree. That's like, I 100% agree with you. I just know some people will be like, well, you know, why do, like, it's, I think by the time Endgame came out, that's when people are starting to get that superhero burnout. So I think people were like,
do you really think people were burned out after the Infinity War?
I think not that they were burned out at the end of Endgame. They're like, okay, cool, it's like, that's done. And then like more movies kept coming out, kind of thing.
That's when I think the burnout happened.
I think that's when the burnout happened, but I think it's how am I going to phrase this? Where I think, I don't know, I lost my train of thought now. Dang it. It's just the, like, have to reboot my brain quick.
I almost need someone who did find it very unsatisfying to come on to
so we can bicker and argue.
Pick their brain. Well, not even argue, just why they feel that way and what they think could have been done better. Like, maybe they do want everyone to have a nice tied up a ribbon, but then there wouldn't be other stories to go to and characters to explore outside of this saga. So I don't know. For me, it's a 5.
That's fair. We could put it as a 5.
I do think that there's always going to be, like we said, like, it was a conclusion to something. So there's always, you're not going to please everyone.
Let me jump down the list here a little bit.
Sure.
We're gonna jump to people that we asked.
Yeah.
So I asked a bunch of people, and we got one response in our Discord. Which, by the way, you should join our Discord if you want to participate in the podcast episodes, and if you want to hear feedback, et cetera, ask us questions. We got all that on the Discord. So join the Discord. But anyways, here we go. People we asked. I won't say their names.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, keep it anonymous. But starting right off the bat, Multiverse of Madness was the better Doctor Strange film.
Multiverse of Madness was the better Doctor Strange film.
No.
There's only 2 Doctor Strange films, right?
Yeah. Yes.
It's just that he's in so many other things.
He literally just appeared in Doctor Strange, and then he was basically in everything else after that.
Yeah, because he's a very important character in the Spider-Man movie as well.
In the Spider-Man movie, in Endgame, and in Infinity War.
Was it better?
No. With Scarlet Witch being the villain and the weird like multiverse. Don't get me wrong, I think the cinematography and the music was
And the
better.
effects, yeah, they're always cool. But that's always
But-
Doctor Strange in general.
Yeah. Like Danny Elfman did great, Sam Raimi did great. Like that was fun. But the story in the first Doctor Strange was a lot better.
A lot of it was just Doctor Strange's origin story.
Yeah, but I thought it was good. I thought it was fun.
I wasn't,
then that's
I
when
wasn't
we
a
got-
big fan of the big bad, but then I guess like the bad was kind of Scarlet Witch from.
In a way.
I don't know. I kind of default to always the first one because
Yeah, I think the first one, that's what I mean. Multiverse of Madness was just a lot. And I think, yes, the special effects, cinematography, whatever, but the story was just flat. Like, oh, Scarlet Witch, you're destroying the multiverse. And then it was just like the use of the Illuminati for what, 10 minutes?
that was just for fans.
I know, but still.
Yeah, that was just fan service. Yeah, no, I probably would default to the first one.
Right.
Similarly to how we discussed like Thor, where the origin story, yeah, maybe sometimes it's a little bit more boring, but it gets you into the mind of how the character is feeling at the time or how they become the hero we see them in the rest of the MCU. And Doctor Strange is a pretty complex character, and yeah, no. I wasn't the biggest fan of the villain in the first one, like how everything kind of concluded in that film, but I did like his journey to working towards the Sorcerer Supreme, if you will.
I don't know. I think first one definitely didn't have well, neither of them had a strong villain.
Yeah.
So I'm just
That's
going to,
fine.
I can't really say that like, oh, this one was
They
better
both
villain,
looked
but
cool.
Both looked cool.
Whenever Doctor Strange is involved, it always looks cool. It looks great.
Special effects, phenomenal.
And I remember when Benedict Cumberbatch was first cast, I remember talking to you and being like, I don't know. And then when we first saw him like makeup and costume, I was like,
it's good.
He is Doctor Strange.
It's good. He's got the look right down pat.
So that take, I'm gonna say it's pretty hot.
Yeah,
Say
I'd
4.
say 4.
Yeah.
4. All right. Next one. Eternals wasn't that bad.
That's a 5. We don't even need to get into that.
I can't wait to watch that movie and discuss it on our episode.
Where
I don't
they're
remember.
not in anything else.
No.
That's how bad they were. They don't even want to use them in anything. They used them in the What If.
One of the 10.
They used them in What If.
Yeah.
That
I am curious how that's going to play into Captain America 4, so stay tuned for that in a future episode. But
as of right now, they haven't used them again.
Yeah.
Probably because no one liked them, so they're like,
how do I fix this?
And did you mention on the podcast where you're like, it feels like they're just trying to use some of like all the contracts that the people sign, so they're just trying to use them in like voice acting for things.
Yeah, I don't know if I said that on the podcast, but that is 100% how I think.
Yeah, it does feel like, how do we use them?
Oh
their
crap,
character.
we have them for 2 more things. Okay, what if character that doesn't really make sense? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I'm gonna say 5, and you probably know why because you probably didn't watch the Eternals, so. Just saying.
Moving on. Next one. I don't think you need to watch every Marvel movie to be a fan.
That's a 1. Like, yeah. Of course.
I think
course.
you don't have to. I
You
think
definitely do not have to.
especially post Endgame, you can just pick whatever you want.
You can almost just look up, if you really were interested in being like, I'm a little lost, you look up like quick YouTube video explaining that the movies you're missing or how they connect. Boom, you jump in and you watch the movie you want to watch.
We should do like a Nerdy Misfit machete order. After we watch all the films or whatever, like what ones you can skip, which ones you don't really need to pay attention to.
Yeah, we could.
Like a condensed, But
yeah, you can only watch one MCU film, and if you like it, you're still a fan of a Marvel film. Like what? Don't let people gatekeep for you to be a fan. If you only like the Thor movies, then you're still a fan.
Sad take, but all right. Next one up. Endgame was only okay.
I feel like we don't even need to dive into this because we just already went pretty deep into Endgame. I think Endgame was the best film? No. But it had its purpose, which was concluding the saga.
Got hype moments.
And had some of the best moments. I like hair standing up, goosebump moments. And yeah, I think it wasn't the best movie, but I thought it did a good job of what it needed to do.
That is the 3.
Yeah, not really that hot. I mean, like some people it feels like also just say stuff like that because
Yeah, they just want to be.
they don't want to go against the grain.
Yeah. I remember seeing Endgame in theaters, but I remember I was with a couple people and they didn't really watch too much of the MCU, so like I really tried to make a machete order. We watched a bunch and we watched Infinity War like 3 hours before we went to the theater to see Endgame. And they didn't know how Infinity War ended. So like seeing someone's genuine reaction to watching people get dusted and being like, so what's next? And I'm like,
no, yeah, there's a lot of emotion in
Yeah.
Infinity War. Like it's obviously the better of the two movies from a story perspective.
I think Endgame is only okay if you haven't like done the full trip through the MCU.
Yeah, I guess
you, like,
that's
pick and
fair.
choose,
It
then
definitely
sure.
depends when you jumped on board.
Yeah.
As people like we've been watching it since before high school.
Yeah.
We've like similar to like how there's not as many hardcore Harry Potter fans.
Yeah. Because they didn't grow up with it. They didn't dive in when it was starting to
As the
build
books
up.
were coming out, as the films
Exactly.
were coming out, and you're just a kid watching it and you're looking forward. You have a lot more emotional attach. I feel like that's how our generation feels about a lot of the MCU. Where like we've been on this journey this whole time from when I was a kid to an adult.
Yeah. Seeing beloved characters literally die on the big screen and like get the justice, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I can see it going either way though. I can see like people being like,
Yeah.
eh,
I think
so
it really depends
three-
on how you feel about the MCU
As a
before
whole.
watching Endgame.
Yeah, for sure.
You know? Moving on. People are too harsh on the new gen stuff.
I see this take on more than just the MCU.
Yeah.
I see this for Star Wars, anime, even what was something else I saw it on? Just new shows. Like,
Yeah.
And my take on this take is that yes, sometimes people are perhaps too emotionally attached to some of the stuff from the past,
Mm-hmm.
which causes them to be maybe unfair.
Yeah.
But I will also say you still need to be harsh. You shouldn't just accept garbage.
Yeah.
Perfect. Pokemon
Mhm.
is a big one that people are like, oh, everyone's hating on the most recent Pokemon, which was what was
Scarlet and Violet.
Scarlet and Violet. Thank you. And I don't think it's coming from a bad place. It's coming from a place in which people want to see it be good.
Yeah.
Right? I think like the new Pokemon, using it as an example, is I thought they did a lot of good things, but they also dropped the ball on a ton.
Yeah, I agree.
The game should run a lot better. You know what I mean? There's also so many ideas that people have given Game Freak that they can put into their games to improve Pokemon. Instead, they're very, oh, we know this works. We know people are going to buy it, so we do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, I do think that if we hold everything to a standard like that, then we're just going to keep getting crap. So I do think people need to be harsh and be like, hey, we expect better. We're not just going to
Yeah.
watch your crap. And I think that's a good thing. I just think you need to have reasons behind it. You can't just be like, this is
Yeah.
bad.
I jump on the hate train because other people hate
just
it.
joining
so
on
I'm
the
not
hate
gonna,
train. And I feel like
yeah.
we've done a decent job of disliking and saying why we dislike something.
Yeah.
But also, we haven't quite joined on the hate train. Like, we didn't hate the Marvels.
Mhm.
And a lot of that was a big
That
hate
was
train.
a very hated movie when it came to the MCU.
And I feel like part of that may have been because we went in expecting it not to be
Yeah.
enjoyable or good. And we liked it a lot more than we expected, which kind of shift since our expectations were so low. It's like, oh,
yeah, we were like, oh, that was
so
better
much
than I
better than
thought.
our- yeah. But yeah, I think if everyone just accepts stuff for being, oh yeah, mediocre, then that's all we're gonna get is
Mhm.
mediocre. So I
Agreed.
do think that we do need to be maybe not harsh, but definitely, don't just accept everything as
Yeah,
it is.
I think this is a 3 because I think there's definitely the people that are way too harsh.
There's loud minorities of people
Yes.
for sure. The people, and it's like when you go to people who review restaurants or stuff on like Google or resorts for
Mhm.
vacation resorts, most of the time, a lot of people who are writing the full reviews are people who had a bad experience. You don't.
Yeah.
There's a higher percent of people who are writing those negative reviews than there are the people that are like, I had a great time. Because the people who had a great time don't even think about writing the review. They're just like, I had a great time.
Yeah. 5 out of 5.
Like, they're not even
Easy
rating,
peasy.
right?
Would
Like, they're just like, I had a great
recommend.
time. But there's always the louder minority, which will get noticed a lot more.
Yeah.
And that goes the same for everything.
Well, it's like when you look up a restaurant, you're like, oh, this is like 4.9 out of 5 stars. You don't look for all the 5-star reviews. You look for the reason why it's not 5. Where's
Mhm.
that 0.1, you know?
Yeah, so I think this is a 3. Maybe even a 2 because I don't even think people are over when it comes to the MCU at least.
Yeah.
I don't think people
Different fandoms have very different harsh.
Yeah. Star Wars, for the most part, a lot of it is deserved.
Yeah.
But maybe perhaps overly aggressive.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to phrase
And
it.
part of that issue, I think, is you have a lot of massive creators who are very passionate about Star Wars, whose fans love them and agree with a lot of what they say, and they almost create a mob of their own opinion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it just snowballs.
Mhm.
But yeah, it depends on fandom to fandom, I'd say.
That's fair. Let's do 2 more before we wrap up here. Not every Marvel movie has to be seriously big stakes. It can be silly as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think that's how. I think people think that is a hot take. I don't think it's a hot take. I mean, we discussed Ant-Man for a few minutes. Ant-Man's just a fun movie. It's
yeah, not
good.
as serious on a lot.
Guardians of the Galaxy
I mean,
1's pretty
3's
fun.
serious
3 is more serious. Yeah.
because it was one of the films leading to a big bad, right?
Yeah. Was.
Yeah, was.
Yeah, first Ant-Man's enjoyable. It's fun. First Guardians, enjoyable. It's fun.
Yeah, but so is 3, Matt.
So was 3. Thor Ragnarok,
Fun.
somewhere in between.
Yeah,
Fun
somewhere
but
in between.
serious.
Yeah, no, Marvel movies. I think Avengers films
Should be
be a little bit more
serious.
seriously and big
Yeah.
stakes. That's kind of the point of it being an Avengers, is it needs more than one Avenger.
Yes.
A lot of the Marvel movies, it's kind of why I'm looking forward to the next Spider-Man film a lot, is because now it's just literally your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in a very low-tech suit, right? Like stitched by himself
He's chilling.
and just living his life, like just
Easy peasy.
So I'm interested to see how that ends up because it probably will be hopefully will be more low stake and just following a
fun-
Spider-Man story
yeah.
for that film.
Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I do think it would be nice to see more Marvel films kind of follow the episodic nature of an animation like Spider-Man 90s or X-Men, where it doesn't have to be the massive stake and it's just a fun 20-minute episode, but they expand it into a movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where like Spider-Man fights Kraven or proper Kraven. You know what I mean? You get introduced to Kraven. You're like, who's this guy? He has no impact. The Avengers don't care about
they don't
Kraven.
care about a little Craven guy, you know?
So, and you just see Spider-Man make some quippy jokes where he's like, you know, making fun of Kraven and being like, "Where'd you come from? Like, why are you here?"
Yeah.
And beat him and have a good night at the movies for an hour, 45 minutes.
It's like The Amazing Spider-Man.
And
If
movies-
Amazing Spider-Man was a little bit more jokey, like
Yeah.
less dark at night, basically, like the shots were less dark, I think that'd be a prime example.
I think we could use. I think the take should have been we need more films
Silly
like
movies,
that
yeah.
where it doesn't have. Not that you would like it because it wouldn't maybe relate to the MCU as much.
We'll get into that as we go through the movies. It's not that I don't think they should be impactful. It's just when you're telling a giant story like that, and then you do a random film that's so out of left field, you're like,
We'll
well,
talk about. We'll
yeah,
talk about it.
we'll get there.
another
We'll
time.
get there. You know. And the final one to wrap up. Well, first off, sorry, we want to rank that one on like a 1.
Yeah.
You know, final one.
Because movies should always be enjoyable. They should be. I think one thing is movies don't need to be 2.5 hours long.
No.
We can have an hour 45, 2 hour, some insert random Marvel hero here
Yeah.
film and just have it be more non-serious and it would be.
Easy peasy.
I think people might like that more in a lot of films and at the current time,
Yeah. The current. Yeah, I would agree with that.
the climate of heroes.
Yeah. Final one. The only thing that wasn't great about She-Hulk was the CGI.
Well, CGI definitely wasn't great.
Mm-hmm. There was the show.
Wasn't the She-Hulk? Wasn't there a lot of like dating or like online dating?
Well, she was like a lawyer, and then there was that weird Daredevil one night stand situation that was very comedic, and then Abomination was there, and Wong was there, and there was like the weird hate group, and then Hulk shows up at the end with his son, and the CGI for his son was just bad.
So what was good about She-Hulk?
I don't know. The twerking.
That was good.
No, it really wasn't. I think the premise was there.
The issue is I don't remember anything from She-Hulk because that's how much I cared after we did our review on it, which you can check out on Spotify.
On Spotify, you're looking at just after episode 23 of the podcast.
Yeah, you'd have to go into our audio only playlist, which is on our YouTube as well, and you'd have to really scroll. But yeah, I can't remember. That was what. So when did that come out then? 2 years ago?
That'd be about
3 years ago.
120 episodes ago, I believe, around there.
So yeah,
that's about
working towards 3 years.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's not very memorable, so that doesn't
No.
make me think it was very good.
I agree.
I would be curious to hear this individual's reasons for why it was great.
Please let us know if you're willing
Because
to.
you said the quote was, the only thing that wasn't great
About She-Hulk was the
which
CGI.
means that the rest of the show was great, if I'm to understand the take.
Yep. I do remember.
So I think that's a 5 on the hot scale because I want to hear all the things that are great about She-Hulk. If it was She-Hulk wasn't as bad, people just give it a lot of hate because of the CGI.
Yeah, then that's a different take.
Then that's a different story because
Yeah.
then you're saying the show overall is okay, but I think it gets more hate than it deserves, which that could be true.
Could be true. I will say.
Which one is it?
I said. I do recall watching it and getting a laugh out of her like breaking the fourth wall and like breaking the Disney Plus
Yeah, that was
thing.
either the second last or the
something
last
like
episode.
that. Yeah, being like, I don't
Which-
like the ending.
That was funny. And that was a good use of fourth wall breaking in a more
Yes.
of a comic feeling way.
Agreed.
Where a lot of Deadpool feels like his fourth wall breaking is mostly just like referencing real world things.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much like that was like really being like almost out of a comic book, being like, what am I doing in here? Like, we're not doing this. We're
Yeah.
chaining this up.
And
So
that was
that was
fun.
cool. That was fun. Yeah. But that's
The
one good thing.
Only
we
thing I
said.
can remember.
Yeah.
But there you go, guys. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 hot takes. We're sitting at almost 50 minutes. I'll just list out the ones that we gave a 5, saying that these are insanely hot takes. That is starting with Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is better than the first Guardians. Pretty hot take. Captain America doesn't have a good trilogy. Pretty hot take. Endgame does not have a satisfying conclusion to the Infinity Saga, as some say. Pretty hot take. Eternals wasn't that bad.
Mega hot
Really
take.
the hottest take of here. / the only thing that wasn't good about She-Hulk was the CGI.
Also a hot take.
Also a hot take.
But yeah, let us know if you have any hot takes or you disagree with what we
Mhm.
thought of these hot takes down in the comments below.
And if you like this, let us know if you guys want us to do more of these hot take.
Yeah, we can do them for
podcast
anime,
episodes.
manga,
There's
Harry
more
Potter.
Harry Potter, DC.
We have a lot of fandoms. We
got a
not
bunch.
that well, maybe we have to do.
I would love to
some
do a Star
rewatching
Wars
of some.
ones, but
But yeah, we have a lot of content we can do it on. So if you liked this style of the podcast, let us
know.
And other than that,
Yeah, remember to subscribe. Remember to like, comment, the whole shebang. Join our Discord. We want to hear from you guys. We want to, ask us questions. We want to bring back the podcast corner.
yeah, the question corner.
Exactly.
We have a spot for it.
Exactly.
It's just so quiet.
It's just quiet.
It's lonely. It
Crickets.
needs your questions.
Exactly. Otherwise, Anime of the Month, another.
Yes,
Stay tuned
another
for
anime
that.
month.
Obviously, it's February, so there's smaller months, so that episode will be coming out sooner or later. So if you want to watch another, talk about it, join the Discord, chat for that. It's another option. Join it. Prepared to watch that. It's only 13 episodes. It's on
Shorter side,
Crunchyroll.
yeah.
Give it a watch. Otherwise, yeah, stay tuned for our upcoming mini series, side series.
February will be some new
You'll be
testing
seeing some
content
stuff,
to look forward to.
Look for that. We're going to be doing some shorts. There's going to be content. There's going to be some streaming happening, hopefully.
Well,
Obviously,
check out
Troy,
Nerdy Misfit
Troy.
Gaming. Troy streams every Tuesday.
Yeah, every Tuesday. Nerdy Misfit
He's
Gaming.
actually doing Spider-Man right now.
Spider-Man. Go check it.
Miles DLC and Spider-Man 2 when it comes out.
Exactly. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, thank you so much, guys, for listening and watching. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
Team NMP. The Nerdy Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to join the island by dropping a follow. Thank you, and see you next week.